Yo, is it too early to go with the Bloodline versus the Bloodline at Survivor Series in a War Games steel cage match, the war to settle the score? Let's talk about it. This past Friday on WWE SmackDown, Roman Reigns made his triumphant return to the television show by coming out and rendering the new Bloodline pretty much useless, with Jacob Fatu being out with an undisclosed leg or foot injury. Roman Reigns made easy work of Tonga Loa and Tama Tonga in advance of getting in the ring and basically calling out Solo Sikoa, who looked like an angry and scorned little brother in the aisleway. So my question is, and this is a question that I posed on other social media creators' accounts and platforms, just going in through the comments and having conversations, is if this is too early to put the new Bloodline against the OG Bloodline, the OTC's Bloodline, if you will, who have not even been reformed yet at Survivor Series, which is, judging by my clock, about 3 months away. Now, the WWE, the way that they're going about episodic storytelling, including their top storylines, is they are in no rush at all. They are in no rush. They are not trying to get to the next chapter of a story. They are telling their story, and they are stretching it as far as they can. I mean, think about the Judgment Day, for instance. Judgment Day is a great example. What Finn Balor said about Damian Priest this past Monday on WWE Raw indicated that there was a long-standing plan, and whether or not it was or not is pretty much a moot point. Finn Balor had been planning for a year to get revenge on Damian Priest. A year. And the seeds were planted, and if you go back, and there are some people with way more time than I have ever had that are piecing together the story through video packages and clips and unearthing things from back in the day, where they're like, this was the writing on the wall if we just would have been paying attention. So essentially, the WWE is doing a great job with adding detail and getting you focused on the storyline months and even a year in advance of it really blowing off, and then presenting a new chapter where the rivalry actually kicks into gear. So if that is the case, then if you look at the original Bloodline, you can see how long that had been stretched out. Now, one could argue that that Bloodline story was probably being written in advance of one another, so the story, reached a certain point on that Friday, and they got to writing, and they were trying to write to catch up. Now, they're probably caught up and then some. And with Roman Reigns' help, I'm sure with Dwayne Johnson, I'm sure with a lot of the creative writers that are tasked with teaming to bring this story to life, they are probably well ahead of the game, and they're letting things play out. And they're probably at a point where they can sit back and watch and see, do we need to pull the trigger this week on something that we had planned, or could we just buy time and push that to the following week and then just do something simple here to keep the thing going? I think that they're really at that point. In my opinion, it seems obvious that they're kind of figuring out whether they should cruise or hit the power button, and go in full throttle. If that is the case, in 3 months, in 90 days, do they have what it takes to put the old Bloodline back together and present the new Bloodline in a more fierce and dominant fashion before they collide at War Games? Now, I understand that is what the fans want, and Triple H in the Paul Levesque era has done a great job with fan service thus far. He is basically giving the people what they want, and you got to give the people what they want. So if you're gonna give them what they want, then they want the War Games match at Survivor Series. But is it the right time to pull the trigger on that? I've seen a lot of other YouTube creators talk about the fact that Roman Reigns is not going to be around, with a full schedule thus far. It's pretty obvious he's going to kind of come and go as he pleases, and there are a lot of storylines that need to be tied up before he decides to take another break, essentially. He's got the match with Solo. I believe they should do a match where it's Roman Reigns teaming with Cody Rhodes, and potentially going against Solo and maybe The Rock, or maybe Jacob Fatu. We'll get to Jacob Fatu in a minute. And we also need to see Roman Reigns against The Rock, the match that has been, I don't know, a decade in the making. We also need to see the rematch between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. So we've got a lot to tie up before Roman Reigns rides off into the sunset and then comes back for special appearances again, right? So if he doesn't get a job working for DC as the new Lobo or the new Aquaman in the Marvel universe, then he's probably going to stick around for a while. In the case that he does that, and we do get Bloodline versus Bloodline, my argument and debate and my thesis for today is that it might be a little too soon. Now, some people have argued that it's not too soon, that we've been waiting for this for a long time, that the fans have been chanting "We want Roman" since well after WrestleMania and since well after Solo established that he took the throne over and that he is the new head of the table, the new tribal chief, unbeknownst to anybody in the Samoan family or to Paul Heyman, and that he and his ragtag group of outcasts and black sheep are taking over the Bloodline family in mob style and taking over the WWE, trying to shortcut their way to the top into infamy. And I understand that. And I'm with you on that. But hear me out. In order for us to get the Bloodline versus the Bloodline in a Civil War game style match, at some point you're going to need to do a trade. You're going to need to take Sami Zayn and Jey Uso, who arguably are on a team right now. They are, showing their friendship. They are showing that they're a cohesive unit, and they're seemingly on camera a lot together on Raw. You're going to need to take them from Raw, trade them over to SmackDown, right? And then you're going to need to bring Jimmy Uso back, but only after you bring Paul Heyman back to the WWE, because Paul Heyman is going to need to establish that the wise man is getting the crew back together. So before Sami Zayn calls Roman Reigns his dog and does the hand gestures with the Usos, we need to see Paul Heyman back as well. So that might take a couple of weeks. I'll give you that. It doesn't have to take a while. Now let's switch over to the new Bloodline. The new Bloodline just got neutered on Friday's SmackDown by Roman Reigns. They got obliterated. Roman Reigns treated them like how John Cena treated the Nexus for a while there, where it was just one man just clobbering fools like the Power Rangers clubbed the zombies in the Power Rangers show, or the or whatever they were called. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. If you're old enough, you know what I'm talking about. Here's the clip. So if that is the truth, then we need to establish that the new Bloodline is actually going to be more aggressive than ever before. And a part of that is to bring their rabid werewolf, Jacob Fatu, back. Something else that we haven't gotten is Jacob Fatu getting in the ring and squaring off against Roman Reigns. And you're going to need to at least have a showdown between the two where they're face-to-face across from each other in the ring before you get to them being in the cage match at War Games. So you're going to want that face-off. You're going to want that holy shit moment to reach its point before they get in the cage, because you don't want to wait for that to happen in the cage. That's a great moment. That's a huge moment where Solo can say that I'm going to take the leash off this Wolverine, off this werewolf. I didn't mean to do an Error 404 reference with saying rabid Wolverine like Chris Benoit, but I meant to say that he is their wild animal. I mean, he's their wild one. And if you take the leash off that wild one, there's no stopping him, right? So once he clamps down on Roman Reigns, there's no letting go. He's going to treat him like a little toy, like a dog toy, essentially, right? So if you want that moment before Solo can give the promo saying, like, I'm going to let him go and I'm not going to pull him off of you, then you want to have that face-to-face encounter at something like SmackDown, right? Or something at least like Bash at Berlin, or maybe even Bad Blood, right? So Bad Blood is also another PLE that's coming up, and so you could potentially run Solo against Roman there. But is Jacob Fatu ready to come back with a boot on him? And if he does have the boot on him, is somebody like a Hikuleu coming in and being dubbed Hala Tala Tonga a suitable replacement for Jacob Fatu? I'm not even going to answer that because I believe that all of you that are listening right now just answered it collectively. You all gave the same answer that I would give. A big fat no. Ain't gonna be able to do it, right? So if they ain't gonna be able to do it, then you need to wait for Jacob Fatu to come back and have that moment with the Roman Reigns before they're all in that cage. And is 90 days enough to have that moment in the cage? Also, when they come back and when they're a cohesive unit again, it's not just like the band is going to get back together. No, there are a lot of things emotionally that need to be tied up. Jay and Jimmy need to have their rekindling as a tag team. They need to come back and get on the same page and hug it out. It's not just like we all show up in the back in the locker room and it's like a high school reunion where they're like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Oh, my dog, I haven't seen you in a while. No, it's not like that. Sami Zayn is going to probably say no a couple of times when Jay comes to him and says, Sammy, I need you back with the Bloodline. We need to get the band back together. Sammy's going to say, big fat no, dog, because Roman was a manipulator and he could probably be manipulating us again, and I don't trust him. And the same with Jimmy. Jimmy coming back into the group. Why would I trust you, Jimmy? Why do I think that you're going to have our best interest? You know, we don't trust you. We don't trust the wise man. We certainly don't trust Roman Reigns, right? You're going to need a couple of weeks and maybe more than a couple of weeks of storyline like that, because if we're just going to buy into the fact that Sami Zayn and Jey Uso are going to walk back into the lives of Jimmy and Roman with no accountability for what happened before, no hesitation, just hey, then you ruin the entire character arc of all of those characters and why they split up in the first place, and it makes no sense. So what you really want to do is you want them to have a build-up, because eventually if they decide to trade Roman, or if they decide to trade Jay and Sammy over to SmackDown, then eventually Roman's going to have to save them from an ass whooping. At that point, you can establish that maybe Sammy and Jay are a little wrong and maybe they can trust Roman, but you got to build to that. And honestly, I don't know. It's possible, but I don't know if 90 days is long enough to establish something like that. So you got to be saying to yourself, 90 days to get the match that you really, really want. Is it all going to play out the way that it should? The WWE takes their time right now with storylines. They are in no rush whatsoever to throw something out for the fans and not have anything on the other side of that. They could spend an entire year building towards the new bloodline against the OG bloodline, or they can hold off that moment and wait for another time. The War Games match that you are expecting to see between the Bloodline against the Bloodline does not have to happen at Survivor Series. And I'm just going to let you know right now that it could possibly have to wait until next year or to wait for another PLE. Hey, they could do it in Saudi Arabia for all I know. But the truth of the matter is, if they're going to do it, they've got a lot of tying up to do, and they don't have a lot of time to do it. And having Roman Reigns just come out and not say anything and just do away with the new bloodline, and that was it, shows that they're going to take their time. And if they're going to take their time, then we probably won't see the new bloodline against the old bloodline in that type of scenario at War Games probably for another year. And hey, they could have wrestled 17 matches before we get to that match at War Games, and it could mean a whole heck of a lot, especially if The Rock is involved in that as well. But what do you guys think? Do you think that I'm tripping and that we're going to actually see the bloodline against the bloodline War Games at Survivor Series? And if you do believe that's going to happen, how do we get there? And is it right to wait to make sure that we know that Jay and Jimmy are going to trust each other and that Sammy and Roman are going to trust each other? Or should they all just kind of get back together and just let bygones be bygones? You guys let me know in the comments. Thumbs up on the way out, you guys. Comments are going to keep productivity and interactions up, and that gets more attention on the channel, so that allows for more content and just for more discussion here in the portal of pro wrestling, where it goes down, where we talk about wrestling all the time. I appreciate every one of you that have done that thus far, because you're keeping this channel alive and you're also allowing for other discussion to come in, and we really are doing a great job with that. I enjoy the conversations that I have with each and every one of you, and I look forward to the ones that are listening for the first time to have a conversation as well. So do not hesitate to drop a comment, so that we can really expand our community, but at the same time so that I can come up, like some of the times I see in the comments, it's like, wow, I wasn't even thinking of it that way. A lot of intellectuals that are here that are really thinking outside of the bun, and I enjoy that. So I appreciate you all, and I look forward to hearing what you all have to say. So let me know in the comments, you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, stay tuned for more.